Ladies and gentlemen, in a British accent here, I'm the host, Mitchell Roulaine of the Wrestling Diaries. It's the podcast show for the average Joe, coming at you, doing a little bit of a different shtick here. Check us out on our audio streams, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, and a whole bunch of other ones. Like whatever you, I think a friend of mine listens to us on Radio Public or something like that, or Pocket Cast, one of those. We're on like a bunch of them. So the main ones, though, is going to be off of Apple and Spotify. So check us out there. Also, if you want to see the video content, see all these pretty faces, go to YouTube, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends about us. Tell your grandma. Tell everybody about us. You know, send us gift baskets and leave a review. Leave a review. That's very important. It helps to get our content out there, especially if you're listening to this now and you like what you hear and you like what I'm doing, you like what we're doing here, talking to people in everyday society about the things they struggle with and how struggle is beautiful. Then leave us a review. You know, show some support. Share this with everybody. Today I have a guest on by the name of Mr. Luke Taylor.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, dude, thanks for coming on here. I don't really know you that well. You work at the gym that I go to.
Yeah.
And so I found you to be a very eclectic type of person, and I love outliers. Not saying that you're a weirdo or anything like that, but you seem like a cool guy. So
yeah, it's good to have a little bit of mystery.
Yeah, and I think another thing that really set me off about wanting to ask you to be on the show was you do Krav Maga, which I used to do. And your instructor is closely related to my old instructor / friend, Matthew Holder. Shout out, Matthew Holder, if you're watching this. You better be. I'm going to tag you in the post. But so real quick, though, explain to people what Krav Maga is. And I talked to Matt about this, but in case people didn't see that episode, tell people what Krav Maga is exactly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Krav Maggie.
Krav Maga. Yeah,
Krav Maga.
It's like that's people stay in like Boston or Chicago.
Nice.
Yeah, but of course, like I mean, when I first started learning about it, it was like a Krav Maga. It was actually Hebrew translation for like people say close combat or like contact combat, but yeah, that's basically the main translation of it.
Yeah,
I mean, like the history of it was like, oh, it's like you mean lifting field, I believe his name was. Like, of course, he was like kind of a very athletic guy, like born in like 1910 in like Budapest, Hungary, and everything.
Yeah,
and yeah, of course, during like as he was growing up, when like World War II started and everything, he had to fled Budapest and like go to like somewhere in Israel, and of course he, kind of like got with like a bunch of teams, like a bunch of militias of like the Jewish people during World War II.
Yeah.
Of course, he basically just like took all the different things from like different martial arts at the time and kind of combined them to be like a self-defense system. And so, like
I think I was reading a biography on him too. And there was something about, he was saying like, when after they made Israel an actual nation for the Jews to go to after World War II and stuff, he would like go into the market. Like there would be like, people like trying to like jump him and fight him, and sometimes like just going to the market, he would be like fighting like a bunch of people and stuff. And so like I guess through that he just learned like the more practicality of like, oh, how do I deal with like multiple assailants and all this, because these people are like just jumping me and like and I was like, man, what a way to live. Can you imagine like you have a market that's just down the road, you walk there, you're gonna take a car, but in doing so, like you're gonna get attacked by a multitude of people trying to kick your ass. And so like, and there's just like an everyday thing. You got to go get milk. So it's time to fight. You come back with a thing of milk and it's half gone from being broken. You're bleeding. You got a black eye. It's pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's basically the whole entire deal with it was like, oh, of course, I mean, like, yeah, it became like the self-defense system that was used by the Israeli military. And like, that was kind of like the reason why, like, there was a bunch of marketing behind it, like here in the States, where it's like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, the military uses it. Yeah. Well, of course, it's always been like this kind of crazy thing. But I mean, it was kind of crazy when I first learned about like when you were talking about where like people get beat up just by going to the market and everything. And like I actually asked Nate Acton, which is who's my instructor. Like it's like of course we have like all these different curriculums like at the place that I go to off of Lorna Road, and I'm thinking like, I heard somewhere that like if you're in the military in Israel, like if you only had to learn like only so much in like 2 weeks of like training, because like
Right.
you had to do everything fast paced.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I spoke to Nate and I'm thinking like how do these like guys in the military, how do they learn all of this in 2 weeks? This is like years worth of like material.
No joke.
And of course he just kind of told me a story where it's like it turns out in Israel like their whole entire life is just self-defense. Like his instructor that in Israel, like apparently he was learning it since he was like 10, or like in first grade, because there were starting to be stabbings in his school.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, like people are constantly like killing one another over there. So like they just kind of grew up like trying to like learn how to defend themselves. So,
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, your environment like has a lot to do with that. We live here, so we live very comfortably. We didn't really deal with that per se. So, yeah, I feel like that's why people that grow up in like the mean streets, like in ghettos and stuff like that, where there's a lot of gang activity and stuff like that, and there's fighting and all that stuff. These people are, I mean, they don't take martial arts, but they know how to fight because they have to, right?
Yeah.
It's like you either you fight or flight, but they're not in a position to leave their area, unfortunately, because of circumstance and stuff like that. So they just got to fight, have to fight. Like that's just what it is. And then you just get good at like I guess simple like things like striking and bobbing and weaving and stuff like that, But that's pretty crazy. What made you want to get into Krav Maga, dude?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I guess
get beat up a lot.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing.
Karate
I never
kid.
I know that's like the craziest thing. Where it's like I never really like was in a serious real fight. Like I mean, of course, I work security as my second job, and I've broken.
Oh, okay, wow.
And I've broken up a few like fights in a frat. Like of course, like some of them are in Montevallo, and like I went to like University of Alabama's frat parties.
Oh
before.
wow, yeah, those get crazy.
Oh yeah,
Roll Tide.
Yeah,
Roll Tide, roll.
Exactly. I mean, like there's like a more, of course, because there's more people there and it's like a bigger party. There's like more possibilities of things happening. And of course, I mean, luckily I never had to fight anybody. I just had
That's good.
Of course, I mean, like me being in a shirt, me having a big beard and a scowl on my face was enough to deter everyone off.
Yeah.
But it was mainly because like I mean, I wanted to get into something because like I think it was right around 2020, like before everything locked down. I got kind of bothered with something where like I thought I was having like a masculinity type of like crisis, like a masculinity type crisis. Like I haven't been to the shooting range in a while. Like I didn't really take any fighting classes. I didn't really, and of course like. Plus, I mean, me watching all these different things I like. It's like, oh yeah, you have like this MMA guys, you have John Wick, you have like all these different things.
Sure,
a lot of people watch. And I'm kind of made me think like, you know what, I need to start getting into something. Maybe it'll be a new thing I get into.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always been. I've been a practitioner of self defense. I've taken multiple disciplines. I've done Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Thai boxing, karate. I did that when I was like younger with a good friend of mine. Krav Maga, obviously, and I love. Martial arts just in the sense that it's good to know, like just because you know it though doesn't like anybody can kick your ass, right? If somebody's more athletic than you and they're faster than you, sometimes it's just, but it's better to know it because like it could potentially the math of it is like you potentially could disengage a situation a lot better or save yourself for somebody else with knowing it. It's one of those kind of like better to know it and not need it than need it and you don't have it, right?
Yeah.
Like, how would you handle a situation like this? It's funny because when I was doing Krav Maga with my buddy Matt, I was also doing ballroom dancing at the same time, right? And so, like, through the week, I would train doing Krav on, I think it was Tuesday or Thursday, and then I did ballroom. No, I think Krav was on Tuesday, and then ballroom was on Thursday. And so, like, I was just in there and like, I was training with Matt and the rest of it. And I would stay after class with Matt and help him train in his stuff, doing his combatives and whatnot, and to help him get better and progress through his other phases, his advanced phases. And then, on Thursday, I would go do ballroom dancing. And it's funny because like the instructor or Matt, he was telling me, he was like, oh man, he was like, you should really start coming to, he did like an advanced class on Thursdays. He's like, you need to come there and help that. We're doing weapons training. And I think he had like smaller kids too. And he wanted like me to be like, help him demonstrate and stuff. Cause he didn't have somebody like that. And I had trained with him for a while. So I kind of knew a little bit more than some of the other students that he had. And plus we're just friends and we just flow really, really well together. And I was like, oh, I would, dude, but like I do ballroom dancing on Thursday. And to know like my buddy Matt Holder, he's like a man's man. He's like just man. He's just a meathead. You know, he's just like he loves like working out and training, and he's just, you know, all that stuff. He loves guns. He loves the concept of fighting. He was almost a cage fighter there for a minute. He almost got into that, but he ended up deciding that's not what he wanted to do. But like, when I said that to him, he just had this look on his face, and he was like, oh, okay, yeah. So you're doing the ballroom dancing, huh? He's like, yeah. So like, I guess if you're out, you know, with your girl, and then some guy comes along, bowing up, this big alpha male, and then he's like trying to like mess with you and take your girl, you just kind of dance your way out of it. You just do a little twirl because you're all demasculated from your ballroom dancing. It's like, what? And he's like saying this in front of me, and like people in the class are laughing at me. I was like, whatever, dude. You know?
Yeah.
Right,
exactly.
So then fast forward, I'm at ballroom, and you know, I'm learning tango and waltz, and I was getting pretty good with this. One thing that was great is doing Krav and then ballroom really helped the other one. So like doing dancing helped me with timing and footwork, doing the martial arts, and then doing the martial arts helped me with my rhythm in doing the dancing. And so, you know, I was progressing through, and then my head instructor, she was like, you know, you're really light on your feet. Like, you're really getting pretty good. You should come do we do advanced classes on Tuesday. And I was like, oh, well, here's the thing. I do martial arts. I do self-defense training on Tuesdays, so I can't do that. And then she rolls her eyes. She goes, honey, like, you're not going to find a girlfriend like that. We don't like, I mean, it's cool or whatever, but like girls don't like, like, I mean, obviously I get it. You can self-defense or whatever, but like, if you know how to dance, like all the girls are going to like, you know, go out with you or whatever. And I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a girlfriend doing that martial arts stuff. Like, oh, you have a black eye? They'll be too scared to talk to you. Like, oh, this guy fights and I don't want to get involved with that. And so I was getting it from both of my like instructors on both, you know, things. And it was so funny.
Yeah. I mean, I swear, I mean, it's like one of the, if there's any two industries so that kind of make fun of one another on like two ends of the spectrum, like where it's like, oh, you have dancing, then you have fighting, and like one's very hard, one's very soft. It's like, you know, one's very strict, one's very like flexible in terms of like direction and everything. Like, I swear they probably like talk at each other.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, let's say, yeah, of course. I mean, like, I mean, in my philosophy, like, you know, of course, you probably did the right thing. Just like have a yin and yang.
Sure.
Deal.
Yeah. Life's about balance. Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing to vouch for ballroom dancing, I'll tell you right now, it is not for like sissies or or whatever you want to say. Like, it's not for the, like, you get like, if you do it the first time I ever did it, and I already went to the gym and lifted weights and I was doing martial arts as well. Like, I was sore. Like, my back was really sore. My thighs were super sore. And I was like, what the crap from doing this? Like, you have to like posture up and like, you know, it's a workout, dude. Sometimes I would be like drenched in sweat and I'd be freaked out because I was like, oh man, there's so many pretty girls here. Do I smell bad? Okay, good. The deodorant's still good.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Jeez Louise. Like, it could get intense, man. Ballroom dancing is serious stuff. Stuff.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, apparently, like, of course, I haven't told anyone this yet, but of course, I mean, like, it was weird because it was like, my mom, she works at a dance foundation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and like it's like Children's Dance Foundation in like downtown, of course, like Homewood area.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and one of my friends from like one of the youth groups, actually not youth groups, like young professionals group that I go to, they sent me an ad for salsa dancing classes.
Dude,
yeah,
I know. Salsa chicks will just go, oh my god, look at his hips.
Exactly. I've like looked up videos and like they're like amazing at it, and of course, like yeah, I saw the ad. I'm like, oh yeah, my mom works there and all that, and that kind of got me thinking, like, you know what? I'm starting to get into this like fighting and type of like, you know, hyper masculine type stuff. I'm like, you know what? It'd be kind of great if I can actually start learning how to dance. So, but like,
you need to deload a little bit, bro.
Yeah,
get too much testosterone, man.
Yeah, it's like,
with all your toxic masculinity, I feel it in the air right now.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, toxic masculinity is like, oh, I get what I want and all that instead of being like the hero of the deal.
Yeah.
So.
So you said you're a security guard. I did not know that. What's that all about? How long have you been a security guard, and how'd you get into that? And where do you do it at?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was kind of a long story of like how I got into it. It was like of course, I mean,
was this pre Krav Maga or post?
Oh, it's a pre.
Okay.
Pre.
Okay,
it was like years after Krav Maga. It was actually, let me see. It's like, well, of course, I mean, like my high school, like, of course, I went to a very small high school. It was
Where'd
filled,
you
Spring Valley.
Okay.
It's like a very small private school, like in like the Homewood area.
Okay.
And it was basically it was like a school for learning disabilities. Like I never did have any of them. Like going into it, like it was mainly just ADHD and ADD and everything.
Sure, I feel like everybody has that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, dyslexia, just like the whole 9 yards.
Just take some pills, man. It'll make your anus bleed, but you'll be fine.
It's like, oh, it may increase the like the higher like risk of suicide or suicidal thoughts.
It may cause brain cancer, but that's all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, but like luckily, like in my case, it was like, of course, I mean, I was like before I was born, I had a stroke. Like, of course, I mean, like,
oh wow, okay.
You can hardly see it now, but of course, like if I try to like react with my fingers and all that, it's mainly just my right arm, my right leg that are affected.
This is when you're an infant now?
Oh yeah, before I was born.
Oh okay.
So, yeah.
Wow, like in the womb.
Oh yeah, like my parents, they didn't know anything until like, you know, once they started to notice a few things weren't right, they actually had to take me back and give me like a MRI and everything. They found there's a bunch of fluid on one side of my brain, and like, dude. But the crazy thing was, like, I didn't know any of this until I was like 13 or 14. You know, I mean, like I basically had most of a normal, like, you know, childhood and everything.
Yeah.
Like I still play Pee Wee sports, and like I did all that, and I had basically I just I went through like a bunch of physical therapy as a little kid, like way too young to understand anything, way too young to like ask questions and all that.
Yeah, so you're just doing it. You're just going through the motions.
Yeah, I was just going through the motions, and like I had no idea what was going on. And yeah, it turns out luckily it was like a mild case. There's like some people out there that have what I have, and they're like in wheelchairs.
Oh,
so,
wow.
You know.
Okay.
But yeah, luckily I could still function and everything. Like luckily the type of it's cerebral palsy, but like of course, I mean, my type is caused by a stroke instead of like the umbilical cord on my neck. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
So how does that tie into the security guard thing?
Security thing. Well, yeah, like because I was had cerebral palsy, I was automatically rolled into as like later in life. I was like rolled into that particular school,
right?
And like, of course, they were involved with like voc rehab, like when I was in like a senior in high school. And of course, I kind of kept in touch with like one of the counselors there. And of course, they eventually asked me, "Do you want a job?" And of course, like when I first, like they gave me contact information for like the career center here in Birmingham.
Oh, nice.
And of course, they like kind of like talked to like one of the people there. And of course, they kind of gave me a small list of things I can go into. And I thought being a security guard was a huge, like, I thought that was like kind of a big thing.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm thinking,
be like, yeah, I'm kind of a badass.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, that's basically how I ended up being security.
Yeah, my mom's a security guard, so I know all about it.
Yeah. What company?
She works for Eagles Security.
Okay, like a Eagle Eye or something like that.
No, it's just Eagles. I think it's just what it's called. It's like a company based out of just Birmingham here. She works like out in the hood.
Oh yeah,
yeah. She's got her gun and her vest and all that stuff. She used to be in the military and stuff like that. So
okay, yeah.
She's hard, a hard lady.
Yeah, a hard lady. Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty funny. Yeah. She's like, if you ever met her, you would never assume that she, you know, could like fire a gun and do all these things, and she's so tiny. But yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
Well, that's cool, man. That's So, what do you carry a gun around, or is it like a unarmed security? Because I know there's some things like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, like mainly what I do is just unarmed security. I mean, of course, I mean, even though I'm kind of a bit of a gun guy, and like, of course, I'll keep a gun in the car and everything, but like on me necessarily. I mean, I first like, you know, I just
He's a gun guy, Matt. We got a conservative on our hands.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. So what was I going to ask? I'm losing my train of thought here. on the security thing, what is the crazy? You said you had to break up fights. You've never had to fight anybody yourself, but just break up like little frat parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what's like one of the craziest ones? Tell this story. Like what's one of the craziest deals you had to deal with as a security guard?
Yeah, it's like there's like a few. Of course, I mean like there was one time I had to break down a door, but it wasn't necessarily a huge story. It was mainly like the client they had to they were drinking during like the event that we were working security at.
And where was this at?
It was in Haven in downtown. It's it's kind of like an indoor venue. People rent out for weddings and like fundraisers and everything.
Was it a wedding?
Yeah, it was I think it was a fundraiser. Actually,
a fundraiser. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
and
cool.
of course like they were drinking along with everybody, and of course they kind of forgot that they put the keys in a room and they locked it unsuspectedly. And of course it's just me and like one older guy, and like they're asking me to, like, can you please kick down the door? And like within 2 kicks, that thing swung open like the movies. And like, but like, of course, that was like to me, that's kind of like the coolest thing I ever done.
Right,
but,
you're
like,
kicking a door in. So.
Yeah, exactly. I the very first time I ever done that. But the actual coolest story that I always had was like, I think it was back. It's like during the spring of 2016, I believe it was. I mean, there was actually a car fire in like my main post that I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And of course, it was an old car. Like there was like faulty wiring. Someone like ran up to me, said like, "Give me your fire extinguisher." And like, and I'm thinking like, I was like reaching back for it and like asking what's going on. Like, and I heard it was a car fire. And of course, I just got it and like, I just kind of pulled the pin. Like, coincidentally enough, like 4 to 6 months before anything happened, it was like during the winter. And of course, I was like still at the post and I got kind of bored. So I just kind of picked it up and like read the instructions.
Yeah. So you learned like how to do it.
Yeah. I just like learned how to
oddly enough.
Yeah. Like I was like reading the instructions and the next thing you know, like 6 months later, I had to like, do something with it.
It's like we said before, man, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in that case, there you go.
Exactly. And like the crazy thing was it was like a home standard fire extinguisher. It's like the size of like, a big water bottle.
Yeah.
And of course, like I had to like, and it's like it was like made for like like trash can fires and all that. Yeah. And I had to do the whole entire thing to like put out a car.
Wow. But what about fights and stuff? Anything get real bloody? Any like people? Oh, you touched my girlfriend. Someone's punching them in the face. And you're like, all right, guys, picking them up by their collars. That's enough.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. I mean, not entirely, but like the start of it was exactly like that. Where it's like it's like in University of Alabama. It was like a
roll tide roll.
It was like it was in like a Sigma, like it was like Sigma. I forgot what the frat was, like Sigma Pi, Sigma, whatever. Yeah. Like, but it was like kind of a crazy like fraternity back then. Of course, like a big amount of people there and everything, and of course, like one guy bumps into another guy's girl, and like of course like. Yeah, and of course, like I mean, like one of my coworkers, like he's more laid back than I am. He's like, "Hey, dude, there's a fight going on in that good crowd," and of course, like when everything's going crazy, he's like talking in that tone of voice, and I'm like, I was like, "Oh crap! All right, take my position. I'll take care of it." I'm just kind of annoyed about the whole entire deal. It's like, and of course, like, I had like a big beard and like longer hair and everything, and of course, I'm like 6 foot, and like all the rest of the guys are like 5'8", 5'10", maybe.
Right.
And of course, like I just like walk up and like of course like I end up finding the guys, and of course like everything is like dead silent like between that group, and I'm like, you good? It's like, okay, guys, just like calm down. It was like, and of course like I just kind of kept an eye on them forever. Like luckily they just spent more time talking and like drunk, like yelling. But yeah, like.
That reminds me of a story about Matt's gonna know this story too. Our late friend Scott, when he would go down to these UA parties, and Scott was like, he was a little tomcat. He was crazy. He would get like really wasted and stuff too. But like, there's like this guy who had like a pretty girlfriend, and he like, I don't know if he grabbed her ass or did he smack her ass. Do you know this story, Matt? What I'm saying with Scott? Oh, you don't know the story? Okay. Well, Ivy told me the story. So he grabbed like this dude's girlfriend's ass. Like, so that wasn't like just him accidentally. He purposefully did it because Scott could be a rascal, God rest his soul. But he could be a little rascal sometimes, especially if he was like drinking or whatever. And so he grabbed this girl's butt, and then her boyfriend's like, "Hey man, they said they saw you grab my girlfriend's ass. She said you grabbed her ass." And he's like, this guy's like bigger than him, and he's grabbing him like up by the collar, and like Scott's just like, he's like, "What are you talking about, man? I didn't. Like, he takes him down to the ground like he's gonna like pummel him. And this guy's like, come on, dude. You know me, right? I wouldn't do that. I know that she's your girl. You're a lot bigger than me. You'd kick my ass, man. Come on, dude. Like, you know I wouldn't do that. And he was like, oh yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. And he picked him up and dusted him off and like got him a beer and stuff. Like, oh my gosh. That's just so funny.
So when in doubt, just give him a beer, man. He'll be fine. You know?
He's just like, no, I mean, he lied, of course, but he was so cool. Like the other side of the pillow. He's just like, oh yeah, no, I would never do that, man. I respect you, dude. You know me, right? I wouldn't do that.
I'm like,
man,
dude,
that's so funny. So your other job, the one that I met you at, you work at the gym.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with that? Kind of more the same, just all through this network that you have?
Yeah, it was a bit of a network where it was actually like the security like company, they actually were having, like, I got an email from them like years and years ago where it's like, oh, we're going to have like some representatives from Gold's Gym like actually come by the place, and they'll help you like sign up and everything.
Yeah.
And like, of course, like I went to school for like, you know, kinesiology and stuff.
Oh,
like
did
that.
you? Okay,
oh, yeah,
cool.
Sure. Yeah, like at the University of Montevallo.
Nice,
and everything.
nice.
And of course, like
explain real quick though. Explain to people what that is. I know what it is, but explain to people if they're listening to this and they're like, what is that? I've always wondered. Explain what that is.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, like a kinesiology, like the actual like definition of it, it was like basically like exercise science. It was like the study of like human and non-human body movements. So, you know, like
okay, cool.
So it's a lot of like fitness and like exercise and stuff.
That's so cool, dude, that you have a degree in that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and of course, like I always knew like the type of gym they were talking about. Like the gym that you used to go to, it used to be a Gold's Gym,
right?
And of course, like they had representatives there. Like they'll help me sign up. Like, oh yeah, like it's like, I mean, like hopefully I can like work my way into like working there. Like, and so coincidentally, like one of my friends from Montevallo, like he actually like was like working the front desk, and like I overheard, like, of course, like, I mean, me working out there for like months on end, and like, of course, like, I overheard news that he was like relieving himself, like he's gonna like quit. He's on a 2-week notice or something like that, and I just decided like, you know, turn in my resume like, you know, 2 days after he left, and like they ended up giving me an interview and everything. So I've been staying there since it was like a Gold's Gym.
Sweet,
so,
wow.
Yeah.
You've been there for a minute, man. Oh. Another thing I was going to ask, so this was another reason why I wanted to get you on the show too, is besides the fact that you did the Krav Maga and you knew like a guy that I know from my friend who's connected. I don't think I've ever met Nate. Maybe I have. I don't remember.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, was the fact that you are like a professional bullwhipper or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if anybody's wondering what a bullwhip is, if you ever seen Indiana Jones, he has the whip whoosh, and he like lassos and he swings from like a skyscraper. That's what this guy does. He defies gravity with his bullwhip. Yeah. So I never knew up to this point that there's like competitions and championships and all this stuff in bullwhipping.
Oh yeah.
So like explain to people listening what exactly that entails, and how did you also get into that, good sir?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, of course, I can go from like the beginning of the story to all the way to the end, where it was like, I mean, of course, long story short, it was, the very first impression I had for whips, it was actually, you know, Indiana Jones, like a lot of people, you know, say, oh, you see a whip,
Catwoman,
yeah, exact Catwoman or something like that. You always some of the things like, oh, it's cool, it's loud, and it's like, you know, kind of sleek and everything.
Yeah.
And
my brother used to have one. He used to threaten to whip me with it when I was a little kid because he's a lot older than me. He'd be like, man, you get in my room again. You see this whip? You're going to get this whip. And he would crack it. And I would be like, okay, I won't get in your room. But then I would go in there and I'd like look at his whip and I'd be like, oh, wow, that's what hurt. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, exactly. It was, it's like, of course, I mean, like that was my very first impression of whips, but I didn't have a whip at the time. Like when I was like little, something like, as time went by, I just kind of like, you know, kind of let the whole entire thing go. But then like when I was like 10 or 11, like I found a piece of rope in my backyard. It was like probably like 4 or 5 feet long. Mm-hmm. I kept messing with it and I popped it, and I'm thinking like, oh, this is kind of cool. So for like from like 11 to 12 to about 14, I was just like popping a whip everywhere. Like popping a piece of rope everywhere. And when my 14th birthday, like I got a real legit whip for my birthday.
Nice.
And of course, like, you know, like prior to that, I knew that there was videos out there on YouTube on how to crack a whip like properly and all that. But of course, I didn't really pay too much attention to them And of course, like the very first time I get a real whip in my hands, I whipped myself so bad. It was I had like a welt like from my shoulder all the way down to the right side of my butt.
Yeah.
It's like it had like a perfect imprint of all the braiding and everything.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it was after that I started like paying more attention to like the actual like YouTube videos on like how to crack a whip and everything. And of course like I started learning more and more, and I had to like resort to like actually like making my own whips, because like the one whip kept breaking and everything.
Yeah.
And of course like next thing you know, I'm like learning all these techniques, and I'm starting to get two-handed techniques, like cracking two whips. So like and of course like
he's like Whiplash from Iron Man, Matt.
yeah, Whiplash from Iron.
Shout out Mickey Rourke.
I saw that movie. It was so great. It was actually interestingly enough, like that's actually a technique that the one that he does
doing when he's switching back and forth.
Yeah, he's switching back. He's like switching back and forth. There's like the Queensland Cross or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah,
look at that. Terminology and everything.
It's like
wow.
Yeah, it was actually like a move made in Australia. So apparently they took whip cracking a lot more seriously over there than we do over here.
It makes more sense, right? It's so much terrain over there and very outdoorsy.
Yeah,
I can just kind of see it. I think of Australia.
Yeah, Australia. Yeah, that's basically all it is. And like, of course, there's like little kids there that like cracking whips and like competitions and all that. And of course, like me like learning all the different methods and like me trying to get better at it and everything. When I was about 16 during the summer, like my dad, he told me like, say, hey, I want you to make a list of things you want to do over the summer. I think it's because he didn't want me to like sit around all day during the summer. Yeah. So I just kind of like made all the basic things like, oh, get my license, get this, get that. And of course, like I wanted to be, since I was already good with whips at the time, I'm thinking like I want to do something with this. Like I wanted to actually like go to a place where other whip crackers are and everything. Yeah. So I started searching on the internet and everything. And of course, I found an Annie Oakley like a festival that was taking place in Ohio. Yeah. Of course, I mean when it my dad like called the guy up, it's like, hey, can this guy perform with y'all? It's like, oh, we'll see what he could do. And of course, like, well, he's better than most. Like, oh, we'll see about that. Oh wow. And of course, like I went up there, started cracking whips, and of course, granted, like I'm like light years ahead of like all the other guys, and like and basically I went from like a 16-year-old kid like practicing in his backyard to like performing with like guys who have a legit reputation, like all within one weekend. So wow. Yeah. So if they ever do like if they ever rehash that character Whiplash in the Marvel universe, get this guy right here. Yeah. I'll be like the origins guy. Yeah. He could be Whiplash's son, Yes. So I'll be like the son, or I could be like I could talk in a Russian accent if I can. Like, heck yeah. I will whip you with whip. You think. Matt, can we watch the footage? You sent us some footage in. We want to take a look at it, see whipping stuff. Yeah. Maybe at the end of this, I can challenge you to a towel whip. I'll have like a towel and you have the whip. Oh yeah, I could probably do that too. This really is for the championship. Yeah, just so everyone knows, like if you go to like my Facebook or my Instagram, you could probably see a better video of it. Okay. Yeah, I'll post a link to your social media too, so they can take a look at it. So, yeah, like this guy's hesitating. Yeah, what's happening is like on that one beam, there's one cup, and like I'm sitting on one side, and the other guy's sitting on the other. So it's a fast draw competition. Mm-hmm. Spence is killing. This guy's a great entertainer, though. Yeah. I just love the sound. Like it's just so self-satisfying. I love it. I could listen to that sound all day. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like that was probably like the one competition I got closest to. Play some of the other ones, Matt. I want to see. Yeah, like I mean, you could actually play the second part of it. Here we go. Yeah, that's the second part. What do you? That's you, right? Yeah, that's me. What are you dressed up like here? Oh yeah, I'm just like dress shirt and a vest and a tie. Nice. Try to be all formal. Yeah. So what are you whipping in half there? What is that? Oh yeah, it was just a little styrofoam Dixie cup. Okay. So yeah. And like Rich, that's like Rich Hoffman right there. Like of course he may not be like a huge competition.
One of his solo ones where it's just him playing around.
Yeah. Of course, like that one guy that like I whipped against, like he used to like beat all of us.
Okay, so this
one
is
year.
you just like, what is that? You threw that in the air?
Yeah.
Whoosh. Nice.
Yeah.
Do one more, Matt.
Yeah, one more. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's fast. I just never knew this was a thing. Like the fact that it's a thing is crazy.
Oh yeah, it's like it's an international community, but like it's very very small.
Right.
So it's like
maybe you can grow it up, man. You guys be on ESPN5 or something.
Oh yeah. Probably create a reality show around it. Probably.
Heck yeah, yeah. Seriously, why not? I feel like it's more interesting to me than like people that pull trucks or whatever. I saw that on ESPN3 the other day.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, like strongman competitions and all that.
No, I'm saying like vehicles that pull things.
Oh yeah,
that just pull stuff. It's like a gunshot. Dude, you could F somebody up.
Oh
like,
yeah, definitely.
big time doing that.
It's like being a gun guy and like Krav Maga and whips. I mean, like God.
Yeah, you just like you're like he's like Deadpool, Matt. Just got all the weapons and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, especially like of course that one was like the whip speed and accuracy like on a competition we had. Like of course I think I cleared the whole thing in like 9.31 seconds. Like
so have you won all the competitions that you've entered in this?
Yeah, I've actually in like that particular year I like won like 2 out of the 4 competitions. Yeah, I mean like I always kind of like say like I'm like a world champion like whip cracker like but mainly like it was mainly because like, some of those competitions like only take place right there.
Right.
So of course I mean like sure it's a small like crowd of like like maybe like 7 to 10 whip crackers and everything, and I'm just kind of like competing against all of them.
Yeah. What do you win? You win first place.
Just
a whip.
Yeah,
a brand new like white with a gold tip.
Oh yeah, so the Angel's whip.
The Angel's whip.
Yeah. I mean, like it was mainly just bragging rights.
Okay.
But it was actually kind of crazy
because it's fascinating, man. I've never I never knew this was a thing. I knew about whips. I never knew there was the competitions. I never knew there's people did this like try to be professional at it.
Oh yeah,
it's very very fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, what was I gonna say? One thing I was always wondering is like, what about what if 2 people got into? And I was thinking about this the other day when I found out you did this. I was like, what if there was like whip fighting, right? You put somebody in a cage. Like, all right,
yeah.
So
I mean, honestly, like I think I've seen this before. Like there's actually legit whip fights out there, but like they're in like the Philippines or something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it makes sense. They're super bored out there. They got to do something.
Yeah, like I mean, it looks like it doesn't even look like they have like whips or anything. It looks like they took like dead snakes or something like that. It's something weird,
Yeah. So
like
I imagine that you're really good at popping a wet towel then too.
Oh yeah, right? Wet towel. It's like don't be with me in the locker room, man.
So Matt, Matt, we went to youth camp for a couple years, and the years that me and Matt went to youth camp with some of our other friends, that was a big thing, especially with all the dudes. Like everybody was just, they had, it wasn't with towels though, it was bandanas. Like, cause we'd have different teams on the camp. And so we'd have, like red team has the red bandanas and black team has black bandana. And so like we would make these whips and like they put like hair ties in the middle of them to make it like a tail. It was just like, wow. And like we would just go around like people would get whipped and like, oh man. My friend Thomas was the best at it though. Like he was, he would like go around like whipping people and like have like little whip fights back and forth. And, like people would tap out. They'd be like, all right, man, you're good. I'm good. Like I got all these whelps. I'm good. But yeah. And so like you doing the whip thing reminds me of that. Obviously doing an actual whip.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
You definitely gonna do a lot more damage than a bandana.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, if you hit someone just right, you could actually cut them,
Yeah, so, sure.
Yeah.
How many whips do you have? You have like a Pandora, like a closet, you open it up and it's just like that's my weekend whip, that's my self-defense whip.
Yeah, I've probably made like what, it's like 2, 4, probably like I was like at least over like, I mean, like during the process of me getting into whips, like there was like ways where like I had to like look up online and actually learn how to make whips myself and everything.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and of course like I probably have like right now I probably have like what, maybe like over 10 like actual like whips and everything, but like of course like the rest of them were just kind of like homemade, like with sticks and rope stuff.
Oh, sticks and rope. Wow. What is it? What is a typical whip made out of? It's leather, right? Leather
Yeah. Like that's the most common thing you would see a whip made out of. Is just like leather, like the whole entire Indiana Jones type of vibe and everything. But of course, I mean, there are whips like made of leather and different kinds of leather, and but they're also getting more into like nylon parachute cord.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's that? Nylon parachute cord.
Yeah, nylon parachute cord. Like you could probably see like people having like lanyards made with like nylon and everything.
Okay. Yeah.
So like they actually like would take one of that stuff and they'll actually braid it into a whip and everything. And of course, and it turns out like once that kind of the popularity of that took off, like it turns out it was like the most versatile type of whip because you can take a nylon whip and actually whip cracking out in the rain for it. So
wow. So how do you get the materials to make a whip? You order it online. You get it from like
you can order it online
go to Michael's, the craft store, Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby,
get some stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
braid a whip.
Yeah, I've actually been like into whips like long enough to where like there is like a certain way they make a bull whip where it's basically a big thick nail and they'll braid layers and layers of like leather or nylon over it in order to make a whip. And when I first noticed that and I started making one myself, I'm thinking I could probably go to a hardware store and buy one of those industrial spikes that are 12 inches long or something like 14 inches long or something like that.
Yeah.
And a few hundred feet of paracord and maybe some string to make a cracker out of it. And which is the one little piece at the very, very end that actually makes the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could probably get all that at a hardware store.
Dude, maybe you should keep doing your whip stuff and then start you make them and then you should start selling them, right? Do get a vendor station somewhere like in Birmingham or at a flea market or something and sell whips. And you could start a new trend, right?
Yeah, start a new trend
where it gets well, I feel like my brother, when he had a whip, I feel like in that time it was more popular because my brother always went with whatever fads were going on. And he had the whip and I feel like there was a lot of other people that just had whips. I don't know if it's because of Indiana Jones or what it was, but yeah, man, you could start a new fad on it. Like people are like, oh yeah, look at my cool whip, and
look at this whip. Yeah,
and then maybe for the first several years that it's a thing, and then you just make a lot of money, and then after it's all over with, you're like, oh cool, I did that once.
It's hopefully I don't get canceled or anything. It's it's like white guy with a whip.
Oh no,
yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen.
Holy crap, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
white guy with a whip.
Yeah, like during this year, you have to be very careful about what your endeavors are.
But also, besides that, it could also be people could look at it as oh, this guy's kinky. He's got a whip. I bet he has a dungeon and a bunch of leather outfits and a zipper face mask.
Yeah, exactly. Some people think it's just straight oh, it's raw masculine. He's popping a whip and all this stuff. I mean, I actually got my first girlfriend doing whips. It wasn't because she liked me. It's just because the whips were a very good attention grabber.
Yeah.
It's hard to not notice somebody when they're cracking whips.
Sure. So, yeah. It's because it's interesting. You're oh, what are you doing? Even if you think it's weird, you can't look away, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, how about that? You whipped her into your life.
Yeah, it's of course, I whipped her into my life. And suddenly, of course, it's always the same case where it's you kind of get their attention, and once they kind of realize oh, you may not be their type, or just whatever reason, they tend to say it's kind of like a quick and release thing.
There's some girls that are oh yeah, he whips things. I wonder if I can whip him. Get him whipped on me. I'm just kidding, ladies, or am I?
Yeah, ladies,
send in hate emails. Bring it on.
It's just oh, you can send them all to me. I don't care.
That's so funny. Whips.
It's we all love you, ladies. Don't worry.
So, what do you think? What are you just going to keep doing whips as as a hobby and still do these competitions, or do you have an ultimate goal for what you want to do with this?
Oh yeah, I mean
interesting thing.
Yeah, ultimately it's just just mainly hobby stuff. At first it was just oh, I want to be on the same level as all these other guys, which I mean in some degree I actually did and all that. And of course I mean I just kind of when I first realized how long it takes to make one and how frustrated it was if you mess something up, it's just any arts and crafts things. It's almost like painting where it's you make one mistake, you get all frustrated and kind of have to sell the painting off and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the same thing with whips where it's like you have to like make them. It's kind of long, it's tedious, and like I never really thought of. There was a time where I thought about making a business out of it, but then I realized it would be not worth it.
Hmm.
But yeah, but of course, like, I figured out like right now, I'll probably just like use it as a hobby and everything, and just kind of like go to Ohio every one weekend out of the year.
Sure, man.
And, like
It's cool.
it was actually kind of cool where one that I was actually getting good enough to where like I think it was like 2019 pre-COVID and everything where the announcer like in the videos and everything before we even got into any of the performances and he actually asked me, he's like, dude, I need you to go to Vegas and beat Adam. Like of course Adam Winrich is like he's like the one guy I learned from YouTube and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like
Michael Jordan of whippers.
yeah, basically the Michael Jordan of whippers. Yeah, he had like I was like oversay he had all the Guinness World Records that were related to whips. So
Oh,
like
wow.
he actually went to like Wild West performing arts conventions and all that. And
Okay.
to me, like that's like like the legit competitions are. And like
Yeah.
these are just kind of like, I beat these guys like like under the table.
Maybe you
So-
should be like that Adam guy, man. Build your own brand, right? You go to these
Yeah.
these different places, and then you can sell just T-shirts. You don't have to sell whips now. You just sell T-shirts with your name on it.
Yeah,
the
just-
whipper snapper.
Yeah, it's
Or
like
something.
I'll probably make it like I'll probably make like a whip brand of just T-shirts where it's like a bunch of whips everywhere or like a bunch of gashes everywhere.
Heck yeah, dude.
Probably like some like rugged stuff like that.
It's interesting. It makes me like I want to whip now. Like I legitimately. That's what I'm saying. You could like build some kind of business or some kind of brand off.
Oh
of it, 'cause
yeah,
I just,
definitely.
It's interesting to me. I love the sound of it. Just
Oh yeah,
I don't know. It's cool.
yeah. I
I'm
mean,
gonna buy
yeah.
a whip now. I'm gonna go buy a whip.
Oh yeah, like it's actually kind of crazy. Like, I mean, like there are like when you talk about like businesses and all that, where it's like I've actually seen a few people like actually like make businesses off it, and I'm thinking like, I mean, of course, I mean like getting that started is like hard as anything,
Sure.
like in my mind and all that. And of course, it turns out that the announcer in the one of the videos that we had, like it was that he's actually best friends with one of the whip makers that was kind of involved with some whips that are like made in movies. and all
Yeah.
that.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, like there was like the two that I may know that I know the most is like the whip that's in the Lone Ranger
Mhm.
and like the Django Unchained.
Yeah.
Like the like apparently he was like that guy that the announcer is friends with. Like he actually is like involved with
Wow.
that some way or another.
What I think is great though for you is that like because this is very peculiar and not a lot of people are doing it. It's not a big market. I feel like you're like and you're so good at it and you do these
Yeah.
competitions. You're like the person that started filming videos and putting them on the internet before YouTube became really big. Like a lot of people, and I'm not saying like whips are going to catch fire or whatever, but I'm just saying like because it's a limited market, I feel like have a really good potential to potentially do something a lot more with it than what you're doing. Now, whether you do or not is whatever. That's up to you. I'm just
Oh,
saying
yeah.
the potential is definitely there just because of how good you are and how small the market is already. So,
Yeah,
dude.
that's definitely something to think about. Yeah, it's like never thought about it that way.
sure.
So yeah, I always thought like it's like even in high school I was thinking like it's like if like when it's like such a small market I'm thinking like is it ever going to have a boom or
Yeah.
anything? It'd be great to be like one of those businesses that like like it's like I started it before the boom and suddenly it happens. And it's one of those things you kind of have to like wait for and everything.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Sir, now we're getting to the part of the show where I try to get people to go a little bit deeper with me if they'd like to. They should, though,
Yeah,
right? I
sure.
feel like people, they don't want to get deep. And don't ask to be on my show, right? If you listen to this, don't ask to be on the show if you don't want to get deep with me.
yeah,
I'm not a
exactly.
surface level person. So. But Luke, what are some of the things that the name of the show, The Wrestling Diaries, is about people wrestling with things in life, personal demons, monsters in their closet, things that they deal with, that they try to overcome, they fight with, they struggle with. What are the things that you wrestle with, sir?
Oh well, I mean that's kind of an interesting question. Like, I want to say like of course like one person like there's like multiple things like going at one time to like wrestle with.
Sure.
So, like the one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is that like I mean I guess at the heart of it was like kind of like just kind of like feelings of inadequacies here and there. Where it's like but I wasn't good enough for that. I wasn't good enough for this, and course, like mainly like it had to do with like mainly two aspects. Where it's like one, I didn't really have the greatest love life in the world. Where it's like I didn't have like very many girlfriends. Like of course, everyone started pairing up, and like it's not uncommon for people to think like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm single for this long and this and that and the other. It's like, it's like wait, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, if there's like an opportunity to like, oh, if I see someone that I liked or anything, it's like, oh, am I really their type? And like going through like that kind of past where it's like I've been a rebound before, I've been like left for another guy before, I've been like, like one girl in college, yeah, like, oh, she, broke up with me after a month, and like a few months later started dating my best friend, which is kind of like like,
Yikes.
yeah, exactly.
You guys still friends?
Yeah, we're still friends
Okay.
now, but like, yeah, of course, like luckily, I haven't gotten in contact with like the girl anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like one of those like weird things where it's like, especially, um, like of course, like when like my very first relationship, like that one, like that, I kind of like whipped the girl into my life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like that relationship, it was in like it was at the beach, and like I was on my vacation. As so were they. So were sorry, I'm trying to hear myself. So were they, and like of course, I mean they started to do whips, and suddenly it got interesting. Started talking, and suddenly we had to split because of course, like I had to go home, and they had to go home, so we kind of stay in contact, and like
Yeah.
they were single at one point, and I just asked them like, hey, you want to be together, and they'd say yes, and like maybe like after like what 1 or 2 weeks, and then she ended up finding another guy.
Oh no.
Yeah, and of course, like I was only like 15 at the time, and of course, like I mean, a lot of people they kind of underestimate this, where it's like there is a lot of first impressions you get at a teenager.
Be sure.
Yeah, like there's like
that stuff sticks with you your whole life through too.
yeah, exactly. Like it's the very first time to drive a car. Typically, it's the very first time for a relationship. It's the first time to wear a tuxedo for prom, or like or a type of suit or anything. It's like there's a lot of like
your biology is going crazy. Your hormones are just blasting through the roof.
Yeah,
lots of stuff's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I mean, like it's one of those things, like the whole entire pick your poison thing. Like in life, like it's like, oh, you can lose an entire house, but you could still work your way out of the situation. It's like, oh, would you rather go through like that a big situation but still work your way out of it, or would you rather have like one minor thing happen to you but it leaves an impression on you for the rest of your life? Like, which one would you choose?
Yeah.
And of course, for me, like I would never want to go through that ever again. But it was of course, like that kind of like left like a bad impression on me for like relationships and all that. It's like it's one of those things like, oh sure, like a lot of people they want it, but at the same time like, I'm trying to like hang back because I don't want to end up in the same situation anymore. So it kind of like in terms of relationships, I just kind of like I like felt like inadequate at times and everything. And of course that's like the first aspect of like my whole self inadequacy. It's like the second one is more like negative reinforcement.
What do you mean?
Where mainly like instead of you working for someone to say good job to you, you work well to avoid getting in trouble. So yeah, that's basically like I think like I mean, of course I had like one older brother. And of course, like yeah, he's always great, and of course me growing up with him, I always like paid attention to him. And when he was a teenager and I was kind of like a little kid, like anytime he got in trouble just for any like small stuff or anything, like like a teenager would, I kind of pay attention to that, and of course it kind of reinforced the idea of like me like not wanting to get in trouble, and all that. So I mean, of course, I mean you're going to get in trouble at some point in your life.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, oh, if there's an opportunity to kind of like do things better and avoid, but just to avoid the annoyance of it. Yeah, like that's basically what I did, where I just try to do things well. And yeah, it was like it was one of those things where it's just what was I going to say? It was like, and of course, I mean, like I think that's like one of the hidden reasons why like I started working out a bit more.
Because it helps to kind of build confidence and stuff, right?
Yeah, it kind of helps build confidence and everything. And like, of course, especially when like I first started working out in college, and like I started like kind of like getting a few noob gains here and there.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I started like losing like all the water weight and fat and everything. I started building up and everything. it kind of reinforced the concept to me that like it's okay to go through something because there's always something that you could actually work on and improve something. I mean, even if it's something I can't do anything about, it's better to be productive than not productive.
Oh,
You know?
absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Like if I've always told people, if you want to get from A to Z, right? You want to finish up, you want to hit the top of the hill. But if you can only get to A to B for the time being, that's awesome. You've at least moved, right?
Yeah.
You've went from A to B. You're not just at A. You went to B. So there's a lot of that you can hang your hat on that. And
yeah,
then from B, you can go to C, and then eventually, before you know it, you're on top of the hill, doing what you want to do.
yeah, doing what I want to do. Yeah, like I mean, of course, like kind of like of course, like a lot of people, they probably like if they're like a podcast person or an online person, they probably have heard this person. Where like, of course, I mean, like a lot of people, I've like listened to like a bunch of Jordan Peterson stuff, like self improvement type stuff.
Yeah.
Where I mean, yeah, that kind of like gave me the idea where it's almost like as if like working out was like kind of like a very very indirect, like platform for like just life. When you actually think of like what it takes to actually go through like an actual like exercise program or like any type of like fitness goal, like there's an organized like fitness program. There's like a certain way to eat. There's a certain time you have to be at the gym, like whether it's like early morning or like late after work, or there's a lot of decisions being made, and you have to be organized and you have to like stay scheduled and everything. And of course, I always thought that would kind of help me through life, where it's like, oh, you clean your room, like just start to like like stay up to date to things, do your laundry when you need to, and like just like all the basic things. It kind of makes you feel better when you're just organized and planned and scheduled.
Yeah, well, like working out or doing anything physical, strenuous labor that leads you to some goal, martial arts, right? And like you're training to get a better degree of whatever discipline it is you're learning, and that's what it is, right? It's about building discipline for yourself, and you're doing it through hard work. But like with like working out, like you were saying, like you're lifting weights, and then you start noticing more muscle. There's like in your brain, even maybe deeper, like subconsciously, it's telling you like, oh, so I'm putting in this work, the struggle. It's hard. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. It even hurts, but it also gives me this wonderful benefit. And that's like metaphoric. Like people can use that in life, right? So it's like, sometimes your trials and tribulations is your salvation. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's one of those definite things where it's like, I mean, you always think of it like, oh, like go through anything. It's like, oh, it hurts. It's horrible. It sucks. I'm like, I could say it into either camera. It sucks, y'all. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it does. I try to tell people too that deal with a lot of like personal issues or depression, especially, just go work out. Just go lift some weights and stuff like that. Because I feel like a lot of people that deal with that stuff, they don't practice a lot of self-love.
Oh yeah.
And then if you're working out, like you have to keep up with your own personal body and what you're doing. And then like it teaches you that like this struggle is helping build you up, and then you get a little bit more confidence and you feel a little bit more better about yourself. And then you feel better about yourself, you feel better about things outside of you.
Oh yeah.
And it all just kind of like it all correlates. Like it's a very important thing, man. And yeah. I for one, like I'm probably one of the laziest like gym exercise rats out there. Like I don't want to do it. Probably most days, probably like 60, even 70% of the time, I'm like, oh, I'm rolling my eyes. I do not want to go do this. I don't feel like it. But I just force myself to do it anyways. And then I feel much better afterwards.
Oh yeah.
And obviously then we're just talking about like the psychological, even emotional benefits from it. But obviously the physical benefits are great. Your health improves, your body improves, your strength improves.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, especially like, it's like when it's comes like to like confidence building and everything, like I always, like, I mean, of course, like nowadays, like I'm kind of like, thinking of myself where it's like when I first started working out, it's for like, it was always like the typical goal of like, oh, I want a six pack. I want to look like Magic Mike. I want to like get all the girls and everything.
Yeah, sure.
But of course, like later on when I started to do it, I'm thinking like, it's like, well, I got to start thinking of what reasons, why am I doing this just for me? It's like, of course, if you're doing it to like, look better for someone else, that you're doing it for them as the reason,
Yeah.
Like, you have to think about all the reasons why you like doing it, and like what it gives you. And,
yeah.
like I just kind of like what at this point, I just kind of like what it gives me. Whereas like if I'm like more functional as a human being, like I'm more responsible. Whereas like I'm thinking like, oh, I'm more responsible for like whatever happens to my body and all that.
Yeah.
It's like I was like, oh, like I'm strong enough to like get through this. I'm strong enough to uh, do this. I could run that distance. I could do all this, and yeah, it's I mean, if I actually think about more about myself and like, of course, not in a selfish way, but more like I need to help myself, yeah, rather than like it's not like oh I have to like get away from everything. It's more like oh I need instead of me thinking like oh I need to protect myself, I just need to like help myself instead of like focus on like oh like any outward like reasons why.
Sure. Yeah. Because I mean, like it's like the point of practicing self love. You have to love yourself before you can love other people efficiently. You know, I feel like that's a very important thing.
Oh yeah.
I had some two like amateur to pro bodybuilder people on the podcast last episode, I think it was. Yeah. And, you know, they were talking about, I was asking them, I was like, well, you know, what about the stigma to people that are like in the world? They're like, oh, yeah, they're like your bodybuilders. They're like, they're so like into themselves and they think they're all that and stuff. And they said something that I'd already thought about for a long time, but like the guy was like, because it was a couple, it was a guy and his wife, and they're like bodybuilders. And he was like, actually, if people really looked into it, you'd see that a lot of people that do like bodybuilding are like the reason they even got into bodybuilding was because they were super insecure. They were super depressed. They felt ugly. They felt stupid. They felt unwanted. And this gave them a reason to be like, this gave them confidence. This gave them some kind of like, and here's the thing. Anybody listening to this, I'm not saying everybody has to go out and bodybuild. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Do what you want to do. What makes you happy. But I'm just saying like, there's a good correlation between doing that stuff and feeling good about yourself that like it's like a trickle effect, right? It all comes down, it all spreads out like a pebble in a pond, and it creates ripples. You feel better, so you act better, you speak better, and then the people around you are affected in that way. But I was like, because doing the stuff, obviously there's a level of vanity to it. And there's some people out there that like walk around with their nose in the air. But a lot of people that start out doing it, they like people have disabilities or eating disorders or like whatever it is. And they found this to find confidence in. And maybe bodybuilding's not a thing. Maybe there's something else. Maybe it's playing video games, or maybe it's cracking whips.
Cracking whips.
Or maybe it's doing serapes. I don't know. Like, but whatever it is, I feel like people got to look for it. You got to find it. But like, I feel like sometimes people should fall in love with the struggles of the things they deal with, anyways, because it, you know, I feel like it really like it hardens you.
Oh yeah.
You know, like the things that you have to struggle with, because it gives you something to be better at. So like, you were saying like before, like, oh, you deal with like maybe not feeling good enough about stuff. And then sometimes like somebody would say in rebuttal to you to be friendly and love on you, they'd be like, oh, well, you are good enough. You're great. Maybe that's the good thing to say. Or maybe it is, well, okay, well, maybe if you're not great, you don't feel great enough. Maybe you're not. Well, how can you be better then? What can you do to be better? Maybe that's the question you should ask instead of like, oh, I'm a loser. I'm a piece of crap. Maybe it should be like, oh, well, if I am a loser, a piece of crap, what can I do to not feel like a loser, a piece of crap, or be depressed or be sad? And, you know, that's the mystery of life, right?
Oh, yeah.
How do you find that?
Yeah. How do I find it?
But I feel like the struggle of it, people just look at it the wrong way. And like sometimes your pain is your power, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Where, especially like, yeah, when it was actually kind of crazy when I first like you never know how far you're gonna you never know how far you like came by or like you never know how far you are from like where you were until you actually look back at one point where it's like you have to like go through your wounds and like kind of like reopen yourself and like kind of like face your fears, so to speak. Where basically like I mean I do remember this one time, it was actually maybe like a month ago, where it was I was like working security at Alder's Gardens, which is on my main post.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I love that place.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm just like I'm just the security guard sitting in the guard shack. It's a pretty easy like side gig and everything.
Yeah,
and of course there are these two kids like in a kind of like a like walkers with wheels on the end of them, and of course they were like what 3-4 years old and all that, and of course like they couldn't really walk, and they're always walking with their physical therapists.
Yeah.
And of course, I've seen them for like a number of years, and like, I always thought they had muscular dystrophy or anything. I look down, and they have the same brace that I was wearing when I was their age.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, of course, granted, I was wearing on one leg, and they were wearing on both.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, it kind of broke me down for a second because like I had to like go out of the side of the guard shack and like just kind of bawl my eyes out for a second.
Sure. Yeah.
Because that day there was a class called Train the Trainer like at 24E, which is the gym, by the way. It's in Pelham, Alabama. little side plug,
Yeah, I'll let you do some plugins at the end.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, sure, definitely. Like of course, like Colt Hogan is like the main instructor. He's kind of like the director of like premium programming over there.
Yeah.
And there's a Train the Trainer class where he'll have all the trainers, and they'll kind of like learn different movements and like learn like different ways on how to instruct someone on the movement and everything.
Yeah.
And we were doing like deadlifts there, and like I was doing like I got to like a max of like 405 for a deadlift, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm like losing like. Of course, I mean I'm like weaker on like my right arm, my right leg, and I'm like, of course, like I have like old pictures of me like still wearing that brace that those little kids were wearing, and I'm still like lifting up a piano essentially.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight, dude. I don't think I could do that.
Oh yeah, trust me. It's like if you can get 315 repping it, yeah, you could probably get 405. It's pretty hard though.
Maybe beat my PR.
Yeah.
But wow, yeah.
Yeah, but of course it goes back to like, just I digress, but it goes back to like either you're going to like look back on something that you had a painful experience of, or something's going to show up like in a representation of it, and it's going to like make you realize how far you've come by. And of course I never thought I was going to have this ever like happen, where it's like, I mean, I have no idea what a life of someone who's like had a stroke before they were born. I didn't know what the life was like, because I didn't know, I didn't know anything until I was like a teenager. But, but like of course, like when you go through something like that, or like a relationship issue or anything, it's just nice to find something that kind of like it reminds you of like how far improvements wise you're coming.
Yeah, like there's hope. There's like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
that's it. And it's one thing I'll say, man, is like that, and that's a hell of a testament. It really is, man. Yeah. It's a hell of a testament. And I mean, you're a walking testimony to this, right? You're a walking testimony to those kids that you saw. You really are.
Definitely.
Because like if I don't know you that well, obviously, but I never would have guessed it. Like you seem very healthy, very strong. You work at a gym, for crying out loud. You do martial arts. Krav Maga, for people wondering, Krav Maga is pretty intense. Oh yeah, pretty intense workout, pretty intense martial arts stuff. Yeah, and so like I never would have guessed you had those issues, man. You wore a brace and you had stroke, and like you came a long way, dude. So I mean, that's a hell of a testament to people, and you could use that metaphorically for anything.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like of course, I mean, like that's, I mean, it's weird because I always like, for instance, since this is the wrestling diaries and everything, it was weird because like I was always in the habit of like not really thinking of it being a struggle necessarily with like my condition or anything. It was more like, I mean, like of course, I mean, I lived like my first like 14 years like not knowing I had anything. I still had like Pee-wee sports like when I was little and everything. So it's just, yeah, it's just like one of those things of like the power of not knowing, So I mean, it's kind of crazy going through different stuff. I'm kind of trailing off. Excuse me.
No, you're good. You're good, dude. There's no etiquette we go by here.
No etiquette, but yeah, it's definitely. Of course, this is the wrestling diaries and everything. It's like it's kind of crazy. Like, there may be some things that like some people out there might be going through that like you may not see. It may not be a wrestle for you, but like it's definitely something huge to someone else. To actually, I mean, to me, like some of the stuff I just kind of like brush off, but other people like they look at me like, oh my gosh, you do all this, like, come on, man, I grew up this way.
Yeah, it's just what you know. It's wow, boom, that was good. It's good stuff, dude. Good content, man.
Yeah,
I always wonder like what kind of like stuff I'm gonna get out of people, especially people I'm kind of meeting for the first time, or kind of engaging with for the first time. But that was really great, dude. One thing I would say to you, going back to the romance thing, I know what it's like, sort of. I've never really, not to brag or sound like, I've never really had much trouble in like a romance department, but I've had like, I guess, dry spells or whatever. So I kind of know what it feels like, but I also have other friends that are like hopeless romantic and they're trying to find somebody and it's so hard and they get lonely and they get down on themselves like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not whatever enough. And like, here's what it is. You'll be single until you're not. And then when you're not. And you'll look back and be like, oh, that was, you'll probably even enjoy the relationship you have so much more because you were like, lovelorn or whatever. Sometimes too, I also feel like the moment you kind of stop looking, when you're kind of like, oh, whatever, I just don't even care. I'm just going to like, romanticize these things in life or romanticize myself. I don't mean that in a sexual way. Just in case anybody's picking that up. But like, loving on yourself and doing stuff. Like, love will find you. And like, that happened to me once. Like, I kind of like, I was single for like probably the longest time in my life. And I was like super like just sad and depressed. And then I finally kind of broke out of it and I found other things to romanticize about. I started reading a lot. I started working for a nonprofit organization. And I just kind of, and then like romance like found me. And I was like, wow. And sometimes this is how it happens. It just, when you're not looking for it, that's when it comes. And so.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, like, yeah, like, and of course, like, I've always heard that and I've always thought that was the better advice opposed to like, oh, the whole entire like quote unquote be yourself thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I love those.
I mean,
extra cheese.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I mean, maybe like some of y'all like out there, like probably like, like you can realize or understand me when I say this, where like, I'm the kind of guy where it's like, if you told me to be myself like that, and it's going to go in one ear and out the other. Cause like, it sounds
it's
like
not what registers to you. It's not what you're thinking.
Yeah. It sounds like to me like, oh, I just do nothing and like things will happen. Well, I mean, it's not quite the case, you know?
Right.
I mean, I guess like the better advice was like, of course, like, just like, oh, quit looking and like, of course, do what you need to do in order to feel comfortable. You know, that's what it kind of really means to be yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, like if you just like when you actually like look at all the things like, oh, how can I improve this and all that for me? Yeah, that tends to be the better denominator. Everything where it's
nice.
Where it's like of course, I mean me being single. Of course, I mean like I work like between the gym and like security. I work like 60 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like of course, like me working all the time. Of course, sure. There may not be all that great opportunities, but at least I'm like kind of building up a foundation.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of cute girls that go to that gym. Hey, I'll say this right now. There's a lot of cute girls you work with. Ooh, I just put that out there. Yeah, they're listening to it, and they're gonna be looking out. Who's that guy that thinks their staff is cute? I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like you've got a plethora of options out there, dude.
Oh yeah,
don't worry about it. That's cool.
So I mean, like, you just have to like. It's like if I just don't, if I just want to make sure that I don't have like this persona, like I'm trying to sell myself to like like somebody like. I mean, similar to how like I sell memberships or anything. I don't try to be like a salesy type person. I'm like I'll try to make it more personal, where it's like instead of like being a salesperson, like, oh yeah, we got this, we got the best thing, we're the best place ever. I started to think like, oh hey, this is like what I like. This is my favorite thing. This is like we got all this stuff and like all that. Like, there's plenty of reasons why like we're doing well as a gym. So
nice. All right, man. Let's wrap it up. Final thought. Final thought for the episode. What do you got to tell all your fans listening right now?
it's like oh yeah, it's like kind of like oh like love yourself, and like if you ever like feel down about yourself, just remember like going back to the drawing board is not a bad thing. It's like of course like make sure you have your heart in the right place, like make sure you have some help, and of course I mean like it's like have a direction. I mean that's just mainly that main thing is just like if you have all those things put together, like that just be a great thing.
Hell yeah, brother. I like it. There's a bee in here. Bzzz. Here's going to the mic. Bzzz. Be yourself. High five, bro.
All right. So.
I had a lot of fun, man. I hope you like doing this. Also, my fly is down. So let everybody know this, Matt. You don't have to cut this out. It's funny. My fly was down. I went to go pee. Just covering myself up this whole time.
Yeah,
hopefully we didn't get too much of this on the camera, but whatever.
Yeah, there's gonna be someone on the comments where it's like, oh yeah, like it's from this to that. It's like 15 minutes, 20 minutes of his fighting. Yeah.
Luke, let me get you to plug in all of the stuff like you do, social media, where you work at, 24E Fitness, all that stuff. Plug in for people that want to do whipping, go to the gym, martial arts. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sure. Like my martial arts that I go to is a Counter-Strike Krav Maga, which is like it's like off of like Lorna Road and all that. It's like in Hoover, Alabama. The gym that I work at is a 24E, specifically the one in Pelham. It's 24 every day, which stands for like 24E Health Clubs. I guess like other places like say, the security guys. I work for McDowell Security. I guess that's one plug. And of course, on my social media, it's like on Instagram, it's Luke T 7 period, and of course my Facebook is Luke Taylor. So
exquisite, brother. I really appreciate you coming on here, man. Like I really like this is a fun episode. I hope you had fun.
Oh yeah,
doing
definitely.
This, just shooting the breeze and getting deep with me, man. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Wrestling Diaries. We had Luke on talking about a lot of cool stuff, whips and fighting through struggles and physical health issues and all that. And what are the things that you fight with? What do you struggle with? How do you feel like you can overcome things? And I don't know, where do you see yourself going in the future with the things that you're doing? It's just questions to think about. Like I'm not an expert or professional. I just like people to like think deeper about their lives and not just like have their head in the clouds. Like we're in such a distracted world. We're all distracted by all these artificial things. And sometimes it really pays to dig in deep. So yeah, I'm going to send links and stuff to the stuff that he just talked about, and check us out. Show us some love. Write us a review. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast. Check out the video content on YouTube. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. What do you wrestle with? And how can you beat it? One love.